Hello, hello everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the World Talent Economy Forum um, series of roundtable discussions. Today's topic is one of my favorite topics. It's man-machine interfaces, specifically man-machine interfaces and how they relate to products, what a man-machine product interface would be, what are the impacts of these technologies on the market. Um, so, yeah, welcome everybody, Mr. Shankar, Mr. Marshall, Professor David, and Madam Visha. Um, Professor David Smith, how would you like to analyze this topic?
Oh, it is a great topic, as you said. I first got into you understanding the computer human interface back in the early 80s when I was part of an IEEE special interest group called SIG-Chi for Computer Human Interfaces. And it's really changed a lot, and it hasn't changed a lot over the years since then. If I go back and really look at what we're talking about in the whole area, uh, it's a field that has a lot of work going into it, from very simple computer human interfaces, going all the way up to brain computer interfaces as we're going towards the future. If I just look simply at the human machine interface market, it's about $6.5 billion last year, and it's growing quite a bit at about 15% a year. Uh, so in 2020, the US dollar market size was 3.71 billion, and it's about to reach 7.5 billion by 2026. And you see a lot of places going to make it happen. You see the Internet of Things influencing it. You see the others. You know, how we as humans interact with a computer, of course, is one of the major points here. But also, one of the other drivers for this whole man machine interface is the autonomous cars, and the transportation industry is actually one of the leaders today in trying to push this forward. And you follow up that with the aerospace industry. You know, we've gone from fly by wire, by cable, to fly by electronics. You've gone to head up displays. I love the picture of the differences between the space shuttle and Elon Musk's vehicle. The whole dashboard was monitors on his, so it kind of looked back like the images back in the old 2001 Space Odyssey movie. Uh, Great predicting the future there, but we see the way we interact dramatically change. You know, I have friends who say I would never use a touch screen computer, but because they've gotten so used to using the touch screens on their smartphones, that interface has become a natural now of touch. And you know, I don't understand why Apple is not putting touch screens on their MacBooks yet,
Mm.
because it's so easy to interface and used on all their other devices. The other type of things as I look at this market is you're seeing this whole man machine, or again, human machine interfacing going in places like manufacturing plants. You're seeing the food and beverage industry, pharmaceuticals, quite a few other places. We're seeing it move more and more into manufacturing, how we interact with devices. You know, I love to kid people that COVID has really sped this up. You know, I was out shopping yesterday to buy food to cook today for Thanksgiving, which was a bad experience. But most of the checkouts were me interacting with a handheld scanner, a scanner and device, touch screens, without a person inside anywhere to help. So the place we've seen this human computer interface has become so that it's expected now that the average citizen knows how to interact with computers in a fully heptochet situation where I have to use the touchscreen, I have to use the scanners, I have to use the other devices, or you're not there. The other place where I love to talk about HCI is the invisible HCI. You know, I apologize for this comment, but it's like I love to give a, in one of my speeches, I talk about every time you get in an automobile today and sit in the front seat, the car weighs each person
Mm.
because it needs to adjust the force of the airbag.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And and I'm going to be a little sexist here, but when I particularly say that, women look at me and say, "You mean I get weighed every time I get in the car?" And they're going, who has that information? Where
Oh,
is it?
yeah.
But that is a human computer interface that's invisible. We
Mm.
think that when we turn the ignition on the car, we're doing a mechanical function. No, we're sending signals through the rest of the system to boot other computers, to give other computer commands. And it eventually does get down and turn the starter. But there's hundreds of steps when you turn the key of this human computer interface that are invisible to you.
Mm.
And I think the invisible human computer interface is the place we've come the furthest over the last 40 years, because that's about when we began to see a real emphasis on man machine type of interfaces and how it works in the digital era. Now, I will admit, going back to the times when we began to go from stones attached to sticks to metal to tractors to everything else, man machine interfaces were there. And we always were trying to uh, advance them. But today, with the ubiquitous of the digital world, the digital communications, the need for man-machine interfaces, the human-computer interfaces, has never been greater, and it's only going to increase as we put more sensors around us, as we do more autonomous activities, where we're able to take hands off, eyes off, mind off of things we're doing in the future. So, not a bad, I think, initial introduction. I could go on this one topic for the whole hour,
Yeah.
but it's one that is very important. And so, Adam, thank you for asking.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So I was, yeah, I was pleased when you mentioned about the invisible HCIs. I think they're looking at smart contact lenses, aren't they, that you can put on your eyes, and it projects uh, augmented reality and graphical
Well,
interfaces into your eye.
well, and that's the whole human brain
Mm.
interface too. So the
Yeah.
brain interface market is actually last year uh, at $500 million,
Yeah.
and it's growing about 15% a year.
Yeah.
And that the whole brain computer interface, or the neural control interface, or the mind machine interface, or the direct neural interface, or what you want to call it, is just beginning to be in the early part of the S curve. So it's really down below where you have market penetration, which is about 3 to 5%. It's still in the 1% range, but that is one that's going to be growing pretty rapidly over the next 15 years.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, and you mentioned 2001: Space Odyssey as well, which is one of my favorite films, and lots of predictions in that, and certain scenes in the pod as it's being flown. You saw uh, representations of computer screens and graphics, which were obviously done by animators back then. But and it's interesting when you said friends and acquaintances who said they never use a touch screen, and people do eventually feel the pressure to fit in or to catch up, or they don't want to be left behind. Because I went on a bit of a internet smartphone semi detox. I had just an old call and message phone, and then now I'm back on smartphone because I've got all these different things like this project and other projects going on. And yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you, David, Professor David. Hello, Professor. Mr. Marshall, would you like to? go next if you have any thoughts already about man-machine interfaces and how
Well,
they.
I think David really hit the nail on the head in terms of market penetration and deployment of the mind market, as well as just the human interface market with technology and machines. I like to tell a story. It's a kind of a stupid story, but I'll tell it anyway.
Yeah, go ahead,
Um,
please.
so it in our company, we have several companies. In one of our companies, we have these interns that come from all over the world, and so some of my folks tell them when they do an intake, go and ask Marshall how old he is. And the joke is, I always say I'm a real old person. I'm an old guy. And so they would look at me and they would say, and they would tell them, look up the history of Bank of America. No, not what Bank of America, Wells Fargo Bank. That's the bank they wanted to look up. And so they would come and say to me, "We were told to ask you how old you are." And I said, "Well, I was born the year before Wells Fargo adopted its first innovation."
Right.
And they all say, "Oh, the ATM."
Yeah,
Now there's an interface, right?
yeah,
So, and
definitely.
I say, no, actually, I was born in 1851 because Wells Fargo adopted its first innovation, the stagecoach, in 1852. That's how old I am. So that's the joke. Anyway, I'm not really that old, but close to it. Um, but touching on the ATM, I think most of us, I think everybody in certainly in the Western world and a lot of developing worlds have touched ATM screens. And I remember when the first ATM came out. Now I'm of the generation, talking about age, that I actually used punch cards to process in a building a computer whose memory is about the size of my cell phone today, and
Wow.
that was a big deal back in the 70s, 1870s, by the way. So it's really we've come a long way. I think what's important, my contribution to this is, I think David hit the nail on the head, and I'm sure all the other speakers here today will have their significant input. I think the only thing I could add to this is I use it every day. I'm interfacing with technology every day, and I have to adopt and adapt to that technology because. I think I told in the last session on World Forum that my son, who's a banker and does a lot of things, and he's very savvy with technology. My grandson, who he's 10 today, but when he was 3, he took an iPad from him and said, "Dad, you're not using this correctly." And at 3 years old, told him how to use an iPad. So I
Wow.
think what is happening, and this is my contribution to the conversation, is that every generation becomes adept and adopts technology um, more rapidly than the previous generation. That's not always the case. I'm sure if Leonardo da Vinci were around today, he'd probably, master everything in a snap. But basically, for most people, I noticed that for the mass population out there, we integrate what we're familiar with, and familiarity is part of the adoption of an innovation and of an interface. And I think that uh, this generation, my grandchildren's generation, are much more adept at adopting these innovations. Natural to them. They're growing up with them. I didn't. So that's my 2 cents into the mix.
Thank you. Yes, that's always an interesting thought experiment about oh, what would someone like Da Vinci be like today? And I think back then people maybe had a bit more self-discipline than a lot of people now because young people growing up with technology, some have had their self-discipline compromised because of certain changes that addictions to these devices can have on like the prefrontal cortex. So, but we'll never know. But and what you mentioned about yeah, there's a worrying trend of young people, toddlers, babies between 1 and 3 holding iPads. You see it on public transport. If a child is acting up, being naughty, just yeah, soothe them with a tablet, and that's yeah. I think the long term effects of that might not be so good. I've not heard the term mind market before. That's That's something interesting. When you talked about the stagecoach, it reminded me of how we look back in history, and some transhumanists look at things like glasses and pocket watches and think that's a kind of proto cyborgification. And with the ATMs as well, that's part of the trend of evolution of fintech. Of course, you had credit cards, ATMs, and now contactless. With, I know in the UK there was a limit of £30 for contactless, which has gone up to like £45, and now cashless is looming over us. So we'll see what happens. Thank you. So, I just wanted to say to the new guests, welcome. Sharif is having connectivity issues, so he's asked me to wing it as a temporary moderator. So, Mr. Shankar, would you like to give us your thoughts about man-machine interfaces and specifically man-machine product interfaces? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, you need something mute, sir.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Very interesting topic and very apt in terms of what is happening these days. You know, man and the machine and the technology connection has always been there. The difference today is that I see technology is something inevitable. You know, there was the age of information, we know, there was the age of controlling markets with money, but I see that somehow the axis has changed. Somehow it is no more about your assets in terms of the currency of the money. Technology is fast overtaking simply because of this interface. Your idea, your innovation, your invention, or whatever you dream of doing is kind of possible because of technology. Technology has become intelligent, and we are teaching technology and machines to learn even faster than, or even more better, more quicker, simpler, in every which way. Technologies are the solution. Which brings me to the point that today, if you look at, let's take the 17 SDGs, right, that we all talk about, for making the world a better place, for the experience as human beings. What is it that we have not been doing right? Because we've been only going in the direction of doing certain things that appeal to certain set of the society. But as an individual, we are all connected. We probably did not come face to face with that until the COVID. And we realized what I feel, you feel, what you're going through, I'm going through, and we are all one. And technology simply took a different jump, in which case we can use that now to find out how we can solve the unsolvable. We are standing in front of something that we can only achieve together and make technology our friend. And it is happening. It's just a matter of man using the machine and our alignment to something higher than our greed and our, selfish motives that has been driving the world, which has led us to where we are. And today, suddenly we realize that we need the trees, the water, the health, the women entrepreneurs, and give women a chance to express as much as it's a whole asset. When I look at my friends, they are fantastic with their ideas. Now, you don't need to go to just somebody with money to get your things going. You need the ability to use technology, to instruct technology. I'm talking about AI, and I'm talking about blockchain and all of that, which is simply phenomenal. So, man using technology to products. Products are not products. Products are actually experiences, like how you say a space. So our user experience will definitely take us to the next level. We want everything from an experience. Look at the malls, for example. If they are shutting down, we used to have a certain experience with going to the malls. But today we will need new kind of talent which will interface and bring probably similar or even better experience of doing whatever we want. Today I can just click, go to various places and check what I want to buy from a multitude of stores, which is not just 15 or 20 stores in a mall. I can go anywhere and key in what I want. And I think, from a personal standpoint, and I think everybody would agree, we have much more choices. We can get what we want. We can, if I want to study a book, I know how to take the review and see which author is saying what and what I need to buy and finally come to an understanding. So as an ecosystem of humanity connected, we are at a different level today.
Mm.
It's a very interesting, and we have only scratched the surface. The world is moving very fast. 2022, 2030, 2040, I don't know where it is going to go. But wait and watch. I think it's a fun time to learn. One of the biggest gifts I saw past 2 years and now is that we have come a lot closer and technology is building it even more. So I leave it at that for now. Over to the next speaker. Would love to hear from them.
Thank you very much. Yes, I do agree with you. The world is moving faster and faster and getting smaller and smaller as well. So, indeed, it is a privilege to be alive today to witness this with our own eyes. And this could be the deciding decade that sets a precedent for the rest of our history. And when you said the word experiential, I remember reading an article about a new industry sector called experiential luxury, where rich people want experiences rather than material objects, like even artworks, displays of wealth, fast cars. They want these big experiences, things like Burning Man, etc. And yeah, man-machine interface has always been there in some form or another, whether it's primitive or advanced. And when you said about controlling markets with money, within our lifetimes, will we see a post-currency society? What will the economic infrastructures run on there? Will it be talent, like with this organization, talent economy, as per the name, or will it be knowledge-based economics? And I always love how our discussions are self-referential, because we talk about technology and its benefits while using the technology. We are talking about as we use it to connect with each other and share ideas with each other in real time. And yeah, what you said about COVID, that has brought us together, people together, and as crises and incidents tend to do, like World War One, World War Two. It's just a shame that that collaboration doesn't happen under better circumstances. Madame Rishu, do you have any thoughts about today's topic that you'd like to share with us today?
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, and hello, everyone. So I do agree with what you all have said, and I totally agree about how important technology is. And I come from that standpoint because I'm myself writing a web series. I'm a filmmaker, so I'm writing a web series where this man-machine interface. I cannot get into more details, but it actually takes a very shocking form, and what happens after that. So I kind of have a deeper insight into the subject, and I want to bring in another perspective here. My thought is that as long as man-machine interface is leaded by man, it is the one in the top of the food chain is still man. It's all right. But what's happening as we see, and I think Marshall or David, somebody talked about how their grandchildren. I think Marshall talked about how the grandkids are really smart and able to understand technology better. It's also true that the next generation kind of has grown with technology that we at our times could not even imagine to have access to. We wouldn't be allowed to touch the television remote because God forbid it may go bad or something. So that is the kind of times we come from. So my concern is that as long as technology or machine does not turn man into more of a machine than has already happened, I'm okay with this interface and this entire growth pattern that we are on. But unfortunately, let's take a minute and let's take a step back and recognize the fact that in fact man is becoming a machine. And imagine standing at a location where you're witnessing something mind blowing, spellbinding. There's a site in front of you, that you should take in with your eyes. You would not take them with your eyes. You would turn on your phone and you are an extended machine there, because you're not a complete human being at that time. You're not able to probably have 100% faith in your ability to remember that moment. And I'm bringing to this to your attention the fact that maybe because of dependence on machine, we are becoming lesser human beings, which is a huge matter of concern. We are so, as per our text here, the religious text, the sacred text in India, we believe that there's soul. And I think a lot of it's not a religious discussion, but still I believe a lot in that. There's something called as a human soul. We are the ones with the conscience, and if we become mechanic to such degree, machine like to such degree, are we not becoming lesser selves of ourselves? Is that required? So as a think tank, and as the intellectuals here sitting, and people watching, everyone watching, and as a think tank, I encourage this debate, this discussion to be taken very seriously, to have this kind of an awareness or consciousness of how much interface with machine is okay, and how much should we be conscious of not becoming machines ourselves for too much dependence on machine. I think there's a lot to talk about the same subject. Although I love machine, and because of these this mechanical progress that we've made, I'm able to talk to all of you here in all these countries and all this different geographies at the same time, which is great. But yes, are we becoming lesser human beings because of this interface? Is what I would like to question.
Thank you very much. Yes, I also think spirituality is compromised because of certainly at least over reliance and excessive use of technology, and um, parts of the zeitgeist as well, namely atheism and materialism, of course, that side of our cultures, or of our cultures, to suffer a bit. Um, Rudolf Steiner in the 19th century talked about safeguarding the soul against like infernal machines and progress. So it was a very interesting read. And what you said about, yeah, I think it's a rite of passage for millennials and for young people to teach their elders about how to use some technologies. And I also agree I also think man-machine interfaces can risk being too top heavy on the machine. I used to roll my eyes as a young futurist enthusiast whenever people brought up these kinds of things. But now, as I've gotten older, I've, like other people who get older, they become a bit more conservative with such things. Obviously, I'm still a passionate futurist, but now I don't scoff at questions like, oh, do we have an inherent humanness that will be at risk from, if we over cyborgify ourselves? So thank you very much. Professor Mamoon, thank you for coming. We're talking, today's topic is man-machine interfaces, specifically man-machine product interfaces. Do you have any thoughts you'd like to share with us regarding this topic, today's episode?
Thank you, Mr. Adams. And I was listening the speech from the Marshall, Rika, Shankar, and David as well. And what I understood that already Marshall is sharing his grandchild experience. I was thinking that when you think the man, human, right, that there is some emotion. There is some emotion should be there so that you can recognize as a man, right? You can recognize a human. Unfortunately, when you are too much dependent on the machine, sometimes machine is driving the human. When the machine driving the human, then human lost their emotion. Whether the artificial intelligence or the machine is predominant in that case. But what is our, Mr. Rika already mentioned about this issue. There is a man and machine, they're working together. If the man is driving the machine, that's fine. But when it will be opposite direction, then sometimes maybe we could not come up with the final productivity outcome. I'd like to share some experience here. Mr. Shankar, can you mute yourself, please? Yeah, thank you. Say, in our country, suppose our subcontinent like India, Bangladesh, they suppose that 50 years ago, there was a long queue in the bank. So the people, they started their queue from the morning, early in the morning, and maybe after the few hours, at least 5 to 6 hours, they got the queue, and finally they can withdraw the money. Now we have the ATM machine. They're very good side, no problem. People, they can go for the like the for the digital system. They can withdraw, or maybe they can use a digital. They don't want digital system, but they can go to the analog system as well, the previous system, manual system. But problem is that question of the cyber security issue. When we notice that this ATM machine also abused, the come to the question then what kind of artificial intelligence we have to utilize so that we can at least secure our digital system. So this is our next discussion, cyber security issue. So what I said, they look very careful, and who is doing this one? Human. So human, they are trying to do this kind of the security issue. They're creating the problem, and now artificial intelligence or by the machine, we have to try to solve this issue, solve the problem. So our target should be like that: human, machine, and then our product. It should be the concurrently should work and together for the like betterment of the society. Unfortunately, what is my second observation is that our young generation, particularly the kids and the below the age of 18, they too much depend on the machine. Even they could think they depend on the Google Home, Alex. So they will get up from the bed, buy the Alex, buy the Google Home. You just think, even they could not think that this is a day, this is a night. They don't bother with this one. They're using that air conditioned system, the 24 hours. Even they could not see the green, they could not see the outside. What is the human characteristics? So we lost our human characteristics, particularly COVID-19 pandemic time. I always mention this experience with everyone. This is the time that we come up the recovery, the earlier stage, that what is the human interaction. Yes, we appreciate the machine, we appreciate any kind of artificial intelligence, but we have to make sure one thing, that there should be some limit. All kind of artificial intelligence, all kind of IoT should be driven by the human. Human should take the seat of the control seat. They should be the driver, the controller of this kind of paradigm shift. If we notice that the machine taking this position instead of the human, then there is a lots of question will be there in near future, like in terms of cyber security, in terms we are talking about the like green environment, we are talking about the what we call it the zero free condition, we are talking about the carbon emission. We don't want anymore, but we have to come back that concept at the human could realize. So what is the better place for them? They should control the machine. Machine will supporting them to come up the like better come of the society. So if our view in this way, that's fine. But unfortunately, maybe we are in the little distorted from the real our destination, and that's we are facing lots of problem. I believe that next time when I come back again, I will share the few other thoughts. Thank you.
Oh, excellent. Thank you very much. Yes, the author Tolkien wrote about a lot of these concerns in Lord of the Rings, particularly with Isengard and the destruction of nature and trees being ripped down. And when you mentioned AI, I was reminded of an idea that I've spoke about in previous episodes, where artificial intelligence could synthesize all knowledge from all knowledge bases to help us, the human race, out of crises that require knowledge across all scientific disciplines, since humans are a bit more limited in that capacity. Even polymaths would be limited to compared to artificial intelligence, and so a lot of these crises that we face need knowledge cherry picked from all different scientific disciplines. So I think that's how AI could be very useful for tackling our problems. And with this regarding this topic, man-machine product, I was reminded uh, about advertising, the advertising sector. It's advertising is powerful, it's very influential, and there's a great lobbying power. I remember using, I'm 32 now, I remember using YouTube when it had no adverts whatsoever, and now I cannot listen to mixes of my favorite music without it being peppered by adverts, sometimes one after the other. It is a perfect example of the boiling the frog technique, where big companies very incrementally make changes bit by bit, drip by drip, so as not to be too much of a shock to the system. Using this technique, it's gone from no adverts on YouTube to a ridiculous amount of ads that one can one cannot skip. Um, and advertising uses quite clever techniques. A lot of colors are saturated, a lot of the sound is compressed. It's like a sensory assault, and so even something like a bit garish, you remember it anyway. But yeah, what's the future of advertising, especially with the introduction of augmented reality? Like where you're wearing some eyeglasses or some smart lenses, you're walking down the street, and boom, a digital advert pops into your sight, advertising a cafe a few doors down. Something, and for a bit more into the future after that, something more in the vein of Philip K. Dick, where is the prospect of adverts being beamed into your mind and perhaps even into your dreams. Yeah, we could let's go for another round two. Professor David Smith, did you have any thoughts that came into your head as we went along? Anything you wanted to respond to points made by other speakers at all?
Well, I love all the points made so far because this is an area that you can become very passionate about. But you know, I'm going to have to probably go after this one. But the place I'd like to kind of get into this one is I love a quote from Benjamin Franklin, and the quote is, "When you're finished changing, you're finished." And this topic, I believe that quote really applies very much into, because we're going to continue to advance. We're going to continue to work with different types of machines. As I said earlier, my favorite uh, human computer machine interface are the invisible ones, the ones that we just don't think about. And I've said this before. Name me a device that takes power, costs more than $100, and doesn't have a chip in it. There's not many. And because of that, a lot of this advances of this whole man machine interfacing, and again, I kind of prefer the HCI, the human computer interface, as a term there, because it really goes beyond that. Because, I look at small children today who pick up electronic devices and can work them better than many adults. And that shows you that the interfaces become more intuitive. Um, you know, AI is one of the things that's helping transform this. Uh, but there's others who fear that these machines and these interfaces are going to put them out of jobs, and they do not understand the concept of lifelong learning. And we have to today fully embrace the concept of lifelong learning if we're going to be successful in the long term. One of the things I love about the human computer interface is the way it supplements my memory. We have so many experiences, we absorb so much, but I love it when my computer reminds me, this is what I did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
This is what we did there. I recently had a series of things that when I was CEO of one of the companies, we had a product selected to launch a demo, which was a pretty big deal. And when those memories started popping up, it was like it was yesterday. And the whole team came back together and we celebrated that, even though we had all gone on to other companies. But how did that happen? It was because of a man-machine interface that supplemented our memory and took us back to be able to do things like that. And the fact that it can store so much, it's there. part of the goal of the human-computer interface, though, is to take the human expertise and context and allow that to be indivisible as we work with the machines. And we're beginning to go that way, I think, pretty rapidly. But we need to look at the ontology of relationships that we keep with the machines, and work with that. We read all the time of the ethics of artificial intelligence, the bias of artificial intelligence, and that's part of a human-computer interface too. Is understanding that those ethics and bias is one of the things that we have to work with as we're creating this partnership with the machines. And I truly believe that we're going to see more and more that the human machine interface, the human machine relationship is going to become more essential, and that we need to navigate it in different ways. So if I was a leader, particularly in developing nation, looking at the future of the human-computer interface, I'm going to go back to Ben Franklin's words, because they really continue to ring true to me. A willingness to embrace change is critical. And because of that, you need to understand, you need to be adaptable. You need to commit you and your citizens and your employees and companies to lifelong learning to stay ahead of the curve. And, you have to begin to embrace these new approaches, and not just embrace it. You want to contribute to what you think the human-computer interface needs to be in the future, and be proactive in helping design it and not just reactive. So, Adam, that's my concluding thoughts. I have to go and continue to fix turkeys for Thanksgiving today.
Oh, yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
Because my timer's yelling at me in the background.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, David. Give me your recipe. I'll give you mine.
I will.
Okay. Cheers.
Cheers.
Do you want to continue, Sharif, or shall I just continue?
You continue, and I will listen today.
Okay. Yeah, Benjamin Franklin. Yes, he was a quintessential polymath. Like Professor David said, the only constant is change, and that's something quite important to remember. Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like lifelong learning is becoming a lost art. So hopefully, technology will in the future will encourage people to become like polymaths, or Renaissance men. And we touched upon younger and younger people using these devices intuitively. And I heard something very worrying about children holding books, trying to swipe across the pages or up and down. And one of my favorite positives for me also with this technology is the, like Professor said, outsourcing memories. It's helpful if one is affected by forgetfulness. So I also love the feature of a lot of the devices and platforms where they occasionally remind you of a part of a past memory, like a photo taken or a set of photos. And it's a great feeling, especially if it was an event that was pushed to the back of the mind, almost forgotten about. Mr. Marshall, do you have any more points you'd like to share with us today?
I'd like to address 2 points that have been brought up in this conversation. The concern, and it's a genuine concern, that I believe you pronounce your name Risha, or is it Rika? I'm not sure. I apologize. Anyway, it was brought up that she brought up the topic.
It is Richa. My name is Richa. Richa.
Oh, Richa. Okay, thank you. At least I get it right. I always try to ask. So
just think Rich and just add an A.
Okay, that's great. I'll memory. In this pandemic world, I've created a concept called pandemic. No pandemic memory, meaning you have no memory during a pandemic.
Oh yes,
that's a joke, not serious. But anyway, I'd like to address the kind of a dystopian view, and it is a concern, a genuine concern, of where does technology overtake people and dominate people and shape people versus people shaping technology. And I think David kind of touched on it and it was a good approach with Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin is one of my favorites as well, and I think the quote is accurate. But in order to address the concept of where people, how do people stay in control of the technology that they create? And we now have technology creating technology. I mean, we know that we have computer code that creates other computer code. And so how does one do that? I think it's a mindfulness, and I think it is a spiritual thing. We can't, I think what's happened in our day-to-day lives, we get so caught up that we're not necessarily connected unless you are in a society like in India or other places where spirituality, and I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about where a sense of self and mindfulness plays a role in what we're doing. And our business and our company has taken a conscious effort to approach this and integrate and make sure that people are at the top of the food chain, that they're at the top of the pyramid, not the machines. And the way we do that is we have a methodology. It's not 100% because nothing is 100% in this world, but other than what occurs. But what we do is we make an effort to do what's known as a triple bottom line company. And a triple bottom line company is a company that was created back in the 1990s by a professor out of Purdue University. I never remember his name because I have pandemic amnesia. That's the term I was looking for. I have pandemic amnesia. So basically what goes on and comes about is this. A triple bottom line, as this professor articulated, was that you get a decent return on investment for that is a financial return for your shareholders, your bondholders, your stakeholders. You don't have to become Elon Musk. You don't have to become Jeff Bezos, and you don't have to go out into space to do this. You just need to create enough profit to be able to pay for everything and put some money into the savings. The second return, which is what we focus on, is the return on environmental impacts. Our mission is to lower environmental impacts, and we address climate restoration and climate repair, which is a big deal, especially after it just got highlighted in COP26, right, in worldwide. And just because COP26 is over doesn't mean we're over with the climate problem. So it's just beginning. So we're addressing that. But the third component, and it's the one that addresses this topic, is the social impact investment. And why does social impact investment have anything to do with machine interface? It has everything to do with it because it puts humans at the top of the food chain. Social impact means that you pay people not just, well, back in the 90s, this professor thought that social impact meant that you pay people more than a minimum wage. And in the United States, the national minimum wage is $7.60, I think, an hour, which nobody can live on in the United States. And some states are now making minimum wage of $15 an hour, which is still not enough. So our approach is to pay people enough money, no matter what their role in our company, to be able to put their kids through college, retire healthily, and have a quality of life. That's the financial side. But the other side is quality of life issues. In order to do that, you put people at the top in terms of spirituality, in terms of sensibility, in terms of mindfulness, and make sure that their value is what is valued and not the machines. And the machines are tools for us. That's the way we view it. Sure, it's true that the tools are getting very sophisticated, and it's true that my grandson, my oldest grandson, can manipulate them like no tomorrow. But I got news for you. He's dominant. He's the dominant over the machine. The machines don't dominate him. And he does go out and do sports, and he does judo and karate, and he does art. He draws things old-fashioned with paint, and he does it physically, not just through the machine. And I do realize that there are people out there that are being dominated by this equipment, and that's what they consume. But that's like anything else that's addictive. So addiction is an issue, and addiction can be a drug. It can be machines. It can be anything out there. So that has to do with human psychology. So I think from our perspective, the dominant management tool that we use is not technology. and it is not telling people what to do, but you invert it. In order to get the human at the top of the food chain, you need to invert and allow people to express what their feelings are and whether you agree with them or not. Allow for a dialogue and allow for people to get their emotions on the table. You don't have to agree with them, and you need to be able to have a interface, a communication that's human to human. Could be through a computer, yes, like we're doing now. We're all human to human in this computer, but we're all people, and we can all see each other's expressions. It's not the same thing as being in a room with somebody, but we can interact, and we can use these tools to our advantage and not have it flip the other way. So my final thought, and I too have to go and cook a turkey.
Oh, okay.
Because it is Thanksgiving here in the United States, and I am on the East Coast, but that's okay. So before I go, I just want to wish everybody some mindfulness, some and everybody out there that's listening to think about making their lives dominant and not through the machine, make their thoughts and emotions. And again, thank you everybody for. I'm honored to be on the panel with all of you, and best wishes for everybody. And if you need to connect with me on LinkedIn or electronically. But hopefully one day we'll meet in person. Thank you.
Absolutely, me too. I hope so as well.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Take care. Excellent. You made some good points there. I don't want to sound too hyperbolic, but smartphone addiction is very real, as are similar habits like internet addiction. Being an influencer as well looks rather nightmarish, and that on automation raises lots of philosophical questions to me. It risks listlessness, depression, powerlessness, helplessness, and not having a job or responsibility, a duty, something to fight for can be spiritually ruinous. And people becoming redundant can make people suicidal and successfully suicidal in lots of sad, unfortunate cases. One of the downsides of the welfare state is this stagnancy, where it seems like many people fall victim to weaponized comfort. And I think retiring too early, like in one's mid-50s, also risks that kind of malaise, and it's not always apparent the person being affected what exactly is the cause. If it doesn't occur to them that they retired too early or welfare is hindering personal growth. And the feedback loop of humans making technology, which then shapes the cultures, minds, and bodies of people, who then go on to create more technology, which in turn shapes the human creators even more, is something that's very compelling. Mr. Shanky, happy to go next? Do you have any further thoughts? Oh, sorry, you just need to unmute.
All right, I second.
That's all right.
Everybody's thoughts has been very good, because all the points are so wonderful to understand that we need to be, as humans, controlling our future. And I was looking up what does it mean, the meaning of robo. The meaning of robo is basically tediousness, or all the difficult activities. So it means that as human beings, we need to understand all the drudgery. Drudgery is the word. Robo means drudgery. So when we say robo, we have started believing it's something higher than mankind or something. But actually, it's a good thing that technology is taking us towards moving away and giving us the chance to be totally free, totally creative, increased experience, relationships. Look at the banks, for example. All the drudgery, the paperwork, the difficult computational work, machines handle, so that you can be very customer centric and you can do what human beings are supposed to do, connect with each other on a deeper, meaningful level. So it's just a matter of looking at anything else. When Einstein invented his theory, and he never knew that it would be used for bombing. It can be used to create energy. But whichever way you look at it, no matter how thin you slice anything, there will be two sides to it. And we need to watch and see how much human evolution needs to take place to go beyond what we have created. So The thinking that has gotten us to where we are today is insufficient to go beyond, which is why I am of the opinion if human beings come together, the distance goes away from human beings. We can act as a holistic one, which probably can be termed as spirituality, but spirituality is at the top of everything. And somebody said, it's not education is different from schooling, which is what we are talking about. Ben Franklin. It's constant and never ending improvement. And the more you learn, the more exciting it gets in terms of our overall spiritedness. To be a slave of machine or to be a slave of anything is not human. So we need to keep articulating and feed those parts of our brain which we call a self. And there is, I mean, from what Richa said, the spiritual side, there is the higher self and there is the lower self. And the lower self gets excited by whatever things that you can do with the machine. The higher center in a human being can utilize the machine for the good. So let us say AI for good, that AI for positive impact, like that. So with those words, I am so honored to be here, more because I can activate my faculty and listen to everybody and leave myself at a higher place. So thank you very much
Thank you.
and deeply grateful.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, you're absolutely right. The word robot or the prefix robo has its roots in I think it's Czech. I think the Czech language or Old Slavic robota, which does indeed mean servitude, forced labour, and drudgery, as you quite rightly said. And yeah, schools are so traumatic. I don't know how anyone could learn anything properly in such places. But Madame Risha, do you have any further thoughts you'd like to share with us?
Yes, yeah, I totally agree with Mr. Shankar. And I want to say this that I personally follow the Bhagavad Gita, which is a very precious document, a very precious, piece of history we have. And it says, there is a very beautiful, very beautiful lines in that which says yad yad charati shreshtas tat tat devato jana sayat pramanam kurute lokas tadanu vartate, which basically means that whatever the leaders of the society do, and the leaders of the society could be teachers, scientists, the political leaders, the thought leaders, the people we call stars, whoever, parents, we are all leaders in our own right, and whatever behavior we do, the rest of the people follow. So I think as leaders in this, in the thought community, in the science community, in the political community, in this, because we are right now at a place where people are listening to us, I think the behavior that leaders of the community follow, the rest of the people will follow. So I think that we need to create, as Marshall also said, consciousness and the right kind of thought patterns, the right kind of awareness patterns, and the right kind of behavioral patterns that will encourage everyone to utilize the gadgets that we have with us thoughtfully. And really it's troublesome how these things are addictive in nature. You just go on checking Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, just because you have to.
Yeah.
It's addictive. It's, we follow patterns. This is how the human mind is trained. And I think that as leaders of the society, we must come forward and definitely tell the world what is the difference between a positive or a healthy utilization of technology by man versus what is harmful, and have an open discussion and have a repetitively vocal and a very open discussion about it. It's nothing, I mean, it's nothing to be ashamed of. Yes, we are very proud of technology, just like, and I've been meaning to say this from the beginning, just like a child who has made a sand castle at the beach is very proud of that sand castle. Look what I made.
Yeah.
Look at what I made. This is how I see technology. Man has made that sandcastle and is very proud of it. Look, I added a flag to it. Look, I added another porch to it. Look, I did this. Look, I did that. But that is just a sandcastle. You cannot be the sandcastle, or you cannot start living in the sandcastle, you know. It's still a sandcastle. It's a creation that we have created. And we need to really look at it that way. Because the minute we start, because right now, what's bothering me is that human relations have suffered the most in the past two decades. I think since the time the smartphone came, since the time we have depended so much on technology, human relations have suffered. The quality of human experiences we have suffered. Let me just give a very simple example of the idea of love. People say love is passe. It's an old idea. Nobody is in love anymore. Just a simple example. People in a family gathering, they're celebrating Thanksgiving, and it's a very wonderful tradition. You have a family gathering, people come together. 80% of the people will spend 80% of the time checking their phones.
Oh, yes, yes,
we
yes.
need
Yeah.
to we need to really we need to wake up. And I'm not saying this just to raise a rhetoric or to sound really impressive or anything. I mean it, and I'm really disturbed by it. I think we need to really create this. Maybe after this we should write about it, put posters out there. Guys, step out of your phones, step out of this machine human interface, and have only dedicated time be allotted to it, so that you can be human and the machine can be machine, and the two do not merge to an extent that the future generations would forget which part of what were they to begin with.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, yeah. One of the most depressing things certainly is seeing people at luxury restaurants or five-star hotels stuck on their phones. It's like, what are you doing? To look around you, just smell the fragrances and touch things. Oh, yeah, it's very sad. And what you said, look what I made. Yeah, that's a testament to our desire to create, discover, humans' restlessness to leave a mark in the universe, make a dent in the universe, leave a legacy for people after we are dead. We were to leave graffiti to the universe, telling the universe, I was here, we were here. Um, yes, I think we should reclassify things like television and Facebook, social media as digital drugs without meaning to sound too hyperbolic or exaggerating too much. And yeah, you mentioned the Bhagavad Gita in mythology. You read about things like the golem in Jewish mythology and Talos in Greek mythology, who are like these kind of robotic creatures, and you think, have has human society reached this kind of level in advanced technology before, like millennia ago? And then, so yeah, it's very interesting. Mr. Professor, do you have any more thoughts you'd like to share with us about this topic, or about anything that anybody's said already?
Thank you so much. I like to share the one thing, as Rich already mentioned about these issues. The question is that how you're spending the quality time, how you're spending the quality time. This is quality time in the organization, the quality time in the personal quality time with our kids, quality time with our employees. When you notice that the people they got up for the bed in the early in the morning, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and they like to browsing the Facebook again. They like to see the Facebook how many followers. They like to see the Facebook the what happening there. You just think the people they are distorted for the real life, and they're in the dreaming. I used to say the dreaming society, Facebook society. They come to the question whether it's a quality life or not, and there is some competition, digital competition is going on, and sometimes not the good for the society. Now, as I'm the university professor, so I like to share the last experience with you before finishing. You know that during the last 2 years, COVID-19, we created the platform for the online lecture. We use the Zoom, WebEx, we use the Google Meet, and so on, so platform. Now, when the time is we are going back to our regular classroom, face-to-face learning, what we are observing the students are reluctant to go to the face-to-face class. they are thinking that online class would be better than this one. Initially, we are planning that those are the vaccinated, they can go to the festivals learning, festivals class. Those are not vaccinated yet, so they can go to online class, lectures. And then what happened, even they're vaccinated, they said that they could not get the vaccination. It's very surprising is that this kind of young generation, university students, their age is, I think you understand, 18 to 24. So they are thinking that online platform is better than the face-to-face learning. Come to the question is that it would be really difficult for the whole world education system after the COVID-19 period, that how they now cope up with the like earlier version. But definitely, online platform we appreciate as a faculty member. But there is no alternative of the face-to-face learning, particularly when it comes to the like assessment, quality assessment. That time is very important, the face-to-face. So now come to the question is that sometimes we are too much dependent on the technology. Yeah, we appreciate the technology driven society. We are appreciated this kind of technology advancement. But sometimes we have to think whether we are going to the right way or wrong way. And I believe those are the like the already Rika mentioned. The one thing is the leaders. What are the parents? Whatever the like the industry, corporate leaders, academic leaders. We have to start to think about this issue. How are we utilizing the man and machine? Our ultimate target is a good product, good graduate, good society. But we have to think that we are utilizing the machine properly or not. And who will be the driver? Who will drive this one? Machine or human? So this is our like I believe that is our one of the challenging issue is coming. And let us start to think. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, yeah, certainly COVID has caused a massive spike in anxiety and depression, and particularly the lockdown as well as the virus itself, making people fearful of big crowds and going back to school. Yeah, you mentioned quality time, life quality, technology's effects on life quality. Um, we need to be careful of technology's impact on people's IQ levels as well. And social media is tearing friendships and family relationships apart because of opposing political views being posted on social media platforms like Facebook. Social media is like telling on yourself disguised as it's like spying on your friends and family with them spying on you, with authorities spying on both of you. It's all disguised as this cozy and utopian way of staying connected. So we need to be careful. And I think that we've come to the end of this episode now. I just want to say thank you to Sharif for letting me do this one. It was a lot of fun. Many thanks to Sharif, Madame Risha, Mr. Kanko,
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Sharif ji. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I just want to add from December 1, we have our exclusive sessions with Rwanda government. So it will be another public-private partnerships. So hopefully with these sessions, we can solve many problems of Africa. So I request all of our audience, please join in our session. Thank you, Mr. Shankar. Thank you, everyone.